You might have heard it said that when you're trying to set up a good rifle scope combination, that you can expect to spend as much or more on the scope as you do on the rifle. The point being that it doesn't matter how good the rifle is, if the scope, the aiming device that you have on top of it is not up to snuff, you're not going to have a good setup. And the prices on scopes range from literally tens of dollars to thousands of dollars. There's a huge range in there. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at one that is kind of on the lower end of that range and see if it might be a good setup. I'm talking about the Gunnr Heimdall 6-24 by 50 millimeter here. We're going to take this thing out and take it to the range, do some testing, and just do an overall kind of review of this thing and see if it's up to snuff. That's what's coming up next here on Survival on Purpose. Welcome back to Survival on Purpose. My name is Brian. Thanks for joining me for today's video. We're going to take a look at this, at the time of this video anyway, sub $300 scope from Gunnr. It's the Heimdall 6-24 by 50 millimeter objective lens. Gonna take this thing out to the range, see how well it does. We'll talk about the pros and cons and just kind of give you my overall impression of this scope in today's video. But first, as usual, today's words of wisdom from the Bible. And today's wisdom is a very today's words are a very familiar verse to a lot of people, but maybe not from the NLT translation as we're going to read today. This is from the book of John, chapter 3, verse 16. For this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. And for me, those are words to live by. And I got to say a big thank you to my friends at XS Sights for sponsoring this video. You've heard me say it before, XS Sights are the only sights I trust my life to on any pistol that I carry. I've got XS big dot sights on the Glock 19 on my hip right now. I was a paying XS Sights customer for years and years before they approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in having them become a channel sponsor. And since I literally trust my life to their products, I said yes, and I think it's a great fit. I have no hesitation whatsoever in recommending XS Sights. They are the fastest sights in any light. They're made in the USA, and they're just by golly good. So you can use the coupon code SOP15 if there's somewhere you might want to stick a code in there, and it'd be very helpful to you. So thanks again to XS Sights for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's see if we can get to it with this scope. Okay, so here is the Gunnr Heimdall 6-24 by 50 millimeter first focal plane, high-powered variable optic, or variable power scope, whatever you choose to use as nomenclature. And let me point out, first of all, that it does not come with this mount. This was the Gunnr mount that comes with the HPVO, the low-power variable optic. Also, just want to point out a couple things that I like to check when I'm the quality on the scope. I want to see how well the zoom feature, how smooth it is, how well it works, how easy the ocular focus is. So this is the part that focuses your eye to the reticle, and then this, your parallax adjustment, is actually the part that focuses the your objective lens onto the target. And speaking of first focal planes, let's just get that out of the way real quick. If you're not familiar with that, what that means is that the reticle is in front of, before the magnification process. So when you magnify what you're looking at, you're also magnifying your reticle, which is a really good thing to have in a variable power scope if you have a reticle that has any sort of measurement markings on it, because that means that if your measurement markings are correct, just straight inside the scope, then as you zoom in, the marking on your reticle is going to be accurate to what the measurement would be at the target. So that's a first focal plane. That's why if you have a variable power scope, it's really important to have a first focal plane on it if you have any kind of a measurement markings on the reticle that you're going to use. So that being said, let's talk about the specs of this thing now. The first thing people ask about usually is what kind of glass and how does it look when you look through the scope, which is important. And this has German shot glass in it, so it's very good glass. It's coated and all that good stuff like you would normally expect, but it's extremely well-made glass. The reticle is a precision MOA reticle. This is a lighted reticle. It has 6 levels of brightness, and if you can see the numbers here, between every 2 numbers there's a dot. That means the light is off. So if whatever level you get to of lighting that you're comfortable with, and then you just want to turn it off, you don't have to go through the whole range. You just click it one time. Another feature of this thing that is very unusual to my mind anyway, it's an MOA reticle. and MOA turrets, and every click on this turret is 1/8 MOA, which is pretty unusual to my experience. Usually I see 1/4 MOA per click, but this one has 1/8 MOA per click. And they're locking turrets, so when you push them down, they're locked. You can't bump them out. If you want to adjust them, you just pull the little ring up, and you can adjust it up 1/8 of an MOA at a time. And you can see, by the way, on this one, when I've zeroed my turrets, I didn't have their little plastic tool they give you, so I scratched it up a little bit. That doesn't bother me. I could care less, to be honest with you. But I did have my combat flathead, and that's what I use because it's always in my pocket, so I don't have to carry around another little tool with it. You could probably use a penny as well. I mean, something like that would be fine, if you can find one now. As I said, this thing has 6 to 24, has a little throw lever that you can take off if you don't want it. It just screws in and out. But I like the throw lever. It makes it really easy when your hands are cold or whatever. It's made of 775 aluminum alloy, which is really, really tough aluminum. It's a 30 millimeter tube diameter. This thing has 20 MOA of windage and elevation adjustment. And I reached out to them and asked them, does that mean it's 10 MOA both directions, which would be the normal way that is classified. But when I do the counting, it's like, man, we got more than 20 MOA if I'm counting the clicks. And so they said, no, actually, that's kind of a misprint in our manual. This really has 40 MOA total, 20 up and 20 down, so 20 on each side, which is pretty stinking good. Also has a 0 stop on the elevation, which means that when you go back to 0, it'll stop there, and you don't have to keep going around to try to find your place. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, because that is potentially one of the issues that I didn't like about the scope. And not that I don't like 0 stops. It is IP67 waterproof and dustproof, which is pretty stinking good. It's fog proof. It has special. It's used with all the lubrication in here is cold rated, so it won't get stiff on you in cold weather. Shock tested to withstand 1,000 impacts at 1,200 Gs. Has a lifetime warranty from Gunnr, and the price right now on their website, as I make this video, is under $300. So a reasonably low budget scope. Oh, and it does come with these lens protectors. All right, well, that's all the specifications and technical data and all that stuff that you may or may not care about. But let me see if I can give you through the lens look at the reticle and the glass and everything else, and you can kind of see for yourself how well it looks. And to be completely fair, I have a rigged up situation with an iPhone clamped on here, and it was really, really tricky and hard to get everything focusing and everything working right. So some of the shots aren't as focused as I would like. Hopefully you can see well enough to know what's going on here, but it really is a lot clearer than with my eyeball than it is with the iPhone thing. But okay, here we are in my poorly centered reticle with the iPhone, and that's at 100 yards. And that is at the maximum illumination of 6. Take it down to 1, and you can barely see illumination there, but it's there. And now that's with no illumination. So in dim light or regular light, this overcast, it's a pretty good reticle look there. I'm not going to try to fire with this contraption bolted on the scope, but yep, I just want to show you the clarity of that thing, and that is at 24 power zoom. Scroll on back to 6 power, so that's at 100 yards. All right, well, hopefully that's some reasonably helpful through the lens footage of the reticle and what a target looks like at 100 yards at different magnifications and all that. I didn't see much point in just putting video clips of me shooting the rifle, because there's not really anything you can learn from that. But what I try to learn when I'm testing a scope like that is basically just a couple of things, or 3 things maybe. First of all, how easy is it to get a full picture with your eye relief? And that all depends on eye relief. And how easy is it to get everything adjusted? And on this scope, that was pretty simple. The ocular adjustment here focuses my eye on the reticle, and for me, that's always a challenge because I've got these progressive lenses on it. So when I'm looking through a scope, at the top of my lenses are for distance, and the bottom are for close up. So to be honest, I usually take my glasses off. Don't tell the range safety officer. Second thing I try to check for is if the clicks on the turrets line up with the measurements on the reticles. In other words, if I move the turret 1 MOA, does it move the reticle 1 MOA or an eighth of an MOA or whatever I click the turret? And as far as I could tell, it did. At 100 yards, if I needed to go 2 inches on the target, then I would move it 16 clicks and it moved 2 inches. So I can't complain about that. And then the third and final thing is just, does it stay where I put it? And the answer is yes, it did. So as far as functionality, the scope seems to function very fine. And I only had one issue with it. And to be fair, if you're not shooting out over 500 yards, it's not even going to matter to you probably. All right, so I had said earlier that one of the issues I had, and really to be honest with you, it's the only kind of negative that I have about this scope, is had to do with zero stop. And not that I don't like zero stops. I think zero stops are a good feature to have if you have enough MOA adjustment to need to turn your stop more than one full revolution to maybe you're dialing in a lot of elevation change. Then when you go to turn it back, you don't have to count those revolutions and remember how many times you turned it. You just go back to zero. Bam, like that. But in this particular case, there's a problem with that. So this has 20 MOA of adjustment, elevation adjustment. So if you needed to cant this thing up because you're making a long distance shot, you can crank it up 20 MOA. So for example, at 500 yards, a 308 168 grain Sierra Match King from Federal has approximately 6.2 MOA of bullet drops. But as you start getting past 500 yards, then that's going to change significantly because your bullet is slowing down and your drop is going to increase. The problem with that is the zero stop that they have only lets you go to just over 9, which is probably fine for under 500 yards, like I said. But if you're looking to try to go longer, then that's as far as you're going to get because the zero stop stops it both ways. And normally a zero stop allows you to continue on past zero going up, but it stops you when you're coming back down. Let me just show you why that is. See that little tab right there? That little tab right there is your zero stop tab. And then inside here, there's a little pin that is a zero stop pin. So this pin prevents you from getting more than 9 MOA out of the scope. And again, if you're shooting under 500 yards with most rifles, that's not going to be a problem. But it is, in my mind, a little bit of glitch because it doesn't do you a bit of good to have 20 MOA if you can only use 9 of it. And then I guess the only other really criticism I would have is I'm not really thrilled with these scope protectors. They work as far as being, when you're not using them, but you take them off, you got to keep up with them. They lay around, they can get dirt in them or whatever, and they're not very, very useful, to be honest with you. They're kind of a hassle, and I would rather pay a little bit more money, just a little bit, and have some built-in flip-up scope caps here that you could just have on here at all times and not have to worry about keeping up with this. But that's nitpicky. I get it, but again, I know their bottom line is to keep this thing as affordable as possible. Okay, so I said I was going to give you my final thoughts on this thing and kind of takeaways. Let's start with the pros. Absolutely, it is well built. It feels like a tank. It just feels like a quality piece of equipment. It's everything about it moves very smoothly. Anything that moves is supposed to moves very smoothly. Anything that's supposed to have a click or notch is very positive, both audibly and tactilely. It's got a very good glass in it, very clear glass, not a lot of distortion, even at 24 magnification around the edges. Sometimes you get that little bit of distortion. It's pretty clear there. There might be a little haze right around the outside, but it's good. Everything is very smooth and operates very smoothly. I like the first focal plane scope. For me, on a variable power scope, that is not an option to not have a first focal plane. First focal plane is important to be able to use your reticle properly. The lighted reticle in super bright light, it's not really crazy visible, but you can still see it. But depending upon the background you're shooting against, you may not even need the lighted reticle, but it definitely helps make it a little bit clearer against some cluttered backgrounds sometimes. So those are the pros. The cons, as I said, I really only have 2. And they're really more opportunities for improvement because unless you're shooting out over 500 yards, you're not going to need more than 9 MOA adjustment, anyway, elevation adjustment. And the other opportunity for improvement, obviously, I think, is these scope protectors, lens protectors, or whatever. They get lost very easily. They get left behind very easily. They're not the greatest in the world. I personally would be happy to pay another $20-$30, maybe 20, maybe 25 for some. You can tell me how much you'd be willing to pay for them for some flip-up scope caps that are mounted to the scope, and you don't have to worry about it. But again, I know their goal was to keep this thing as cost-effective as possible, and I think they achieved that. Got to say, I think this is a really nice, solid scope for the money. And worst case, if you could choose between the 0 stop or having full 20 minutes of elevation, then you can always pull that little, the cap comes apart, you can take a pair of pliers, pull that pin out, and then you have your full range of adjustment. You just don't have a 0 stop. And that's a trade-off, obviously, but that's it. First, again, thanks to the folks at Gunnr for sending me this so I can show it to you. And thank you for watching Survival on Purpose. I really, really appreciate you watching my videos. If you're not a subscriber, you can click the little link right down here, and you can subscribe. Click that little notification bell, and you won't miss a single video. I've got a lot of stuff coming up for you this year in 2026. I'm going to be hopefully breaking some new ground here on the channel, so I'd be glad to have you along with me. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. I really sincerely appreciate your support. Remember, survival is not an accident, so be prepared. I'll see you next time.